Dr. Elena Buch is being interviewed today. She is a professor in anthropology. She will be speaking about structural violence and the discussion of race within Iowa City. Iowa City is so segregated almost to the fact where you see students, primarily white students, around campus. And then if you go towards the south side of town, or if you go more towards the high schools and elementary schools, it's all older families, or just like families with really young kids, and the demographics are a lot different in each area.
It's certainly common in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. It was one of the things that's interesting about LA is that there's all kinds of racial issues. Space sorts itself out a little bit differently there. People grow up with people who are really different from them, at least visually. Mm-hmm. They may actually be economically very similar. Mm-hmm. Most places sort and property values. I think it makes it really hard for folks that are based on human relationships rather than ideas about people. Instead of having a pretty nuanced engagement with someone whose life is different from yours, like you have all of these contextual details about the people around you and why their lives are different from yours. If you don't ever have that, all you can have is ideas about why people are different from you, and those tend to have less nuance than if you have personal relationships. To be uncomfortable around people and things that you're unfamiliar with, and so it reinforces that segregation throughout people's lives. It becomes harder and harder to engage with people who are different when you haven't, it's just not part of your daily life, so it seems strange.
Do you think people ignore racism to a certain extent, or they just kind of look the other way and decide not to talk about it?
I don't think people mean to be malicious when they're like, oh, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. It becomes noteworthy, not that you have a black friend, because you have such limited experience of having a personal relationship with someone whose life is different from your own. And I think that becomes very hard to overcome over time. The more naive people are about each other, the more awkward those interactions become. When people with privilege are naive about things, it's very difficult for those with less privilege to be like, that's just wrong. Like, you're crazy. That's not how it is. That's not what my people are like. And it's not the responsibility of people with less privilege to educate those with more, right? But it also, the power dynamics of trying to do that are impossible. White folks have enough privilege to just say, well, that's not, I just don't want to believe that. I don't see race, or I don't see whatever. So I think the lack of ongoing contact with people whose lives are really different, and I think that that's true for race, but I also think that's true for economic difference and religious difference and the whole range of human differences, and instead to believe very sort of broad generalizations about people.
That about sums up everything.